Hey, I'm Brad from Canada. Let's get you up to speed on Severance Season 2, Episode 4. Irving is awoken in the middle of an ice-covered lake outside in the middle of nowhere. He discovers Mark, who is high on the hill, also confused as where they are. Irving asks, "Where are we?" And Mark replies,
I have no fucking idea!
Irving makes his way to Mark and on the way finds Helly, also visibly confused. Dylan meets the three of them at the top of the cliff. All of them are extremely disoriented. They look around and discover an old audio-visual style TV on the cliff, like we used to have in school when we knew it was time that they were going to put a movie on and we could put our heads down and go to sleep in class. They play a video starring Mr. Milchek and he lets them know they are on a
outdoor retreat and team building occurrence.
With their Audie's permission, they're going to wander the Dieter-Egan National Forest where they are to find the fourth appendix locating in Scissor Cave, a tomb not allowed on the severed floor, and they are to follow in the footsteps of Keir Dieter to learn from their outdoor experiences. They're told they will have help to find the grotto, and with that, they discover a figure that looks like Mark pointing them in a direction. They wander, and wander, and wander. Then they come across a Helly R doppelganger pointing them into another direction. The direction is in a cave where they actually do find the appendix. By reading the appendix, they discover that Keir had a twin named Dieter, who employed Keir to leave their family and go live in the woods. Irving reads the ridiculous tales from the Dieter-Keir appendix as they travel their way to Woe Hollow. They come across an interesting entry.
But to listen as he spilt his lineage upon the soil.
The guy jerked off onto the ground. They discover a Dylan doppelganger pointing them to their next destination. And like Lord of the Rings, they keep walking. Irving notices Mark and Helly's intimacy and questions Mark about it. Irving tells Mark that he doesn't really trust her as tales of her night gardener still plague his thoughts. As they wander, the four discover a dead and decomposing animal, which they think is a seal. Irving decides
We should eat it.
as they don't know of any sustenances in their future. The three make reference of Irving's agitation and suggest he's very upset that his other Audie's outworld experience was not that positive for him. Irving becomes very defensive and accusatory. They come to the conclusion they should keep making their way to the hollow without consuming the dead animal. On their way to the hollow, they come across four doppelgangers on top of a waterfall. And hey, lucky us, Mr. Milchek is there, informing them that they are in the presence of the tallest waterfall in the world. Now, I'm from Canada. I've been to Niagara Falls. I know for a fact that that's not true. Mr. Milchek leads them to a base camp where there are tents provided as well as Miss Wong providing food for them. The tents are MDR blue, as well as a fire pit which will be used for marshmallows later, and torches which work as both heat and a light source for their comfort, and most important,
The outhouse is stocked with 4-ply washroom tissue.
that's twice better than we get here in Canada. As they get settled, Helly enters Irv's tent with a peace offering of a snow seal she made him, in case he gets hungry. Irving graciously accepts but can't help himself and questions Helly more about her Audie's experience.
What did you really see during the overtime contingency?
As the crew sits by the fire, Mr. Milchek reads of the Keir Dieter and Miss Wong plays a theremin. He states Dieter expired in a very gruesome way as his physical form reverted to nature.
When his eye came out, it popped from the socket, driven by a sudden torrent of pus, and he reached up to grasp at his hair, which was suddenly moss that tore easily from his bleeding scalp.
After Keir suggested they need to go back to their father. As Dieter reverted to nature, Keir apparently saw a temper known as Woe, a bride figure half the size of a human who informed Keir that
Now he's no one's brother, only chaos's whore.
Helly is not impressed with the tale and mocks it, suggesting he expired because
He melted, right? He turned into the forest because he masturbated.
Mark giggles along with her, and Milchek is not impressed with them making light of the tale, suggesting that this is not the team he knew, and that the team he knew would make more out of this sacred text rather than mock it. Angrily, he tells Miss Wong to grab the marshmallows and toss them in the fire, as they are for team players. Irving presses Helly again about her Audie's experience. She is not having it, and Helly brings up Irv's longing for Bert, which hurts Irving's feelings.
It's okay. We all know Irving's upset because he can't ever see Bert again. He's really lonely.
And makes him more defensive. Irving leaves the site in anger.
Hey, Irv.
Fuck you all!
Mark enters Helly's tent to comfort her as she is feeling guilty about mocking Irving. They share a moment, then more, and then more, and then more. Irving, aggravated, wanders the forest looking for Mr. Milchek, and unfortunately he loses his footing, he falls, and his torch is extinguished. Post-coitus, Helly tells Mark she didn't like who she was on the outside, but Mark doesn't care, as long as she is who she is with him. During a moment, Miss Casey's face appears upon Helly's, rattling Mark. Irving blindly wanders and eventually succumbs to fatigue and rests on a rock. Irving wakes in his innie clothes and wanders to his workstation amongst Tim Burton-looking trees. As he works, the partition lowers and he sees Bert on the opposite side. Irving looks over to where another coworker should be sitting, but instead of that coworker, he sees the bride from the appendix story. The numbers on Irving's screen move about and letters appear, and they spell out Egan. He is awoken as the bride aggressively approaches him. As he wakes, he appears to come to a conclusion in his mind. As Irving is walking back to camp, he finds Helly at the waterfall and presses her about her true self, as this Helly was cruel with her comments about him and Bert, and the Helly he knows has never been cruel. He asks her who has the power to send their Audi onto the severed floor. Mark wakes up, finds Dylan, and discovers Irv didn't sleep in his tent. They find Mr. Milchek, and the three of them hear Irving's cries.
Mr. Milchek!
Irving grabs Helly and drags her towards the water. He screams at Mr. Milchek, "Turn her back!"
Hey!
Turn her back, Mr. Milchek!
and threatens to drown her if he doesn't turn her back, as he declares she is an Egan.
She's not Helly! She's an Egan!
As Irving dunks her in the water, Milchek complies, and Helly is reverted. And Irv consoles the Helly he knows. Mr. Milchek chastises Irving and terminates him instantly, stating that his actions are unforgivable, and because of this, his entire Innie's career will be erased from Lumen's history. It will be as if he never took a breath on that floor. Dylan screams his concerns for Irving and apologizes.
Irv! I'm sorry!
Irving walks right up to Milchek, not fazed nor intimidated. He complies, turns around, and Milchek reverts him to his Audi form. Now you're up to speed on episode 4. We'll see you next week.